Yes, thank you very much. And hello, Natalia.
Hello, Mirko.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I mean, cybersecurity is a big topic, and even I think like we have seen in the past from the incidents, that the awareness is rising even in the industry. So let me just step in with a few questions to you about cybersecurity. And the first of all, I have to Natalia, because I think like we're talking from a Siemens perspective, it's rather easy. You're a large enterprise. I think you have a lot of resources in terms of cybersecurity. But what's about the small and medium enterprises we have? What do they need to challenge the cybersecurity?
So a couple of remarks on your question. So number one is 80% of the incidents of the attacks are happening in the small and medium enterprises. Number one. All big companies like Siemens and like others depend on their suppliers for developing products or for operating and managing their infrastructure. So that's why it's very, very important to look at this and to help the small and medium enterprises to protect themselves as well, because by helping them to protect themselves, we are helping us, and we are helping in general the society. Now, the question is how? And there's a couple of things that we address in Charter of Trust. One of the first things that we do is to simplify the requirements that we are doing to the suppliers and to the small and medium, because the requirements that we have, they were all over the place. So every supplier, every small and medium company will get different requirements and will hear at different things. So we have agreed within the partners of Charter of Trust to be very specific on 17 requirements that they have to cover. This is number one. Number two, we are speaking with the small and medium companies and helping them to develop and protect themselves. So there is a lot of shared services being available. They don't have to develop themselves things like a monitoring center, because they can use the ones from others. And so we help them to develop themselves towards cybersecurity. This is our responsibility. We help them very actively into that. And probably this answers your question.
Yes, and I have just a remark. I saw a recent study of the German Insurance Union.
Yeah.
And the study was the awareness of becoming a victim of cyber attacks is getting smaller and smaller by the size of the company. So just small and medium, as when the companies are small, they believe they don't get victims. But if we look at the threats in the internet, everybody is equal. And so I think it's a question like, how can we raise the awareness, and what are the tools, and even like what can Siemens offer their customers here?
So we do a lot of communication and awareness, not only internal but as well external, because of course what you are saying is true. I mean, the awareness is not always there, and the priority that those companies are taking cybersecurity with is not always the one that we want them to have. So what we are doing is communicating, talking with them, making them aware. This is a good way. Now there is a hard way, which means whoever is not taking this seriously is going to have a major attack. And that is and has shown to be the best way to create awareness in the company.
I can't recommend to go to the hard way.
I don't recommend.
I don't recommend it.
The studies also show that this is the normal thing to happen. How the companies react.
And this is leading me to Günther Fischer, who is an expert on industrial cybersecurity. And Günther, it's like, as we have talked, or I've talked with Natalia, we see that the attacks are rising. Simply, they are rising.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think? What are the prior actions for industrial companies they should take to challenge the cybersecurity?
I think what you absolutely have to do is you have to take 3 steps. First of all, you need a baselining and a strategy. What are your most important assets? What are the most important threats you feel you have coming up to you? what is the budget you are ready to invest, because we all have limited resources, we all have limited budgets, and there are so many potential attack vectors where somebody can come in, so you need a clear baselining. And you also have to make contingency plans. If you are hit anyway, how will you react? Customers that have been hit by an attack, by a ransomware, whatever, suddenly they are in a shock, they do not know what to do. These are scenarios you have to prepare. And therefore, consulting and assessment as preliminary measures are playing such a high role in our portfolio, because we want to offer the customers tools to do this baselining. After the baselining, you can decide on your defense infrastructure you would like to invest. Depending on your priorities, depending on the risk priorities that you see, you can invest in the network protection, in the outside world, in the in-system, if you feel that unauthorized people might be in the identification, in patching. So the second point, build a stable defense infrastructure that fits to your risk assessment. And the third part then is continuous monitoring and updating, but because it's not enough to invest once, you have to keep this alive. Like you go to maintenance with your car. And actually what the organization of Natalia is doing inside Siemens is exactly establishing these principles in our organization, in our daily offering, in our daily doing. And also we invite our customers to see that themselves in our factories and digital industries, for example, to share also that experience. But I think that's the most important criteria, because very often customers do want to do something, but they're not sure what is the most important one and why.
You said a lot of time invest, and even for the industry sometimes, investing in cybersecurity doesn't mean to invest directly in the value chain for them. So we've seen in the past, companies hit by ransomware, which is a rather simple attack. Do you believe that's just a wrong priority on investing into the infrastructure, keep the infrastructure up to date?
No, it's the right priority, but also with ransomware, basically you have untargeted attacks where you can get a ransomware, for example, WannaCry, others like a flu when you are in a plane or in a big event like here, and then somebody you catch an infection, because these things are distributed, and this can hit a doctor with his customer database, like a small one. This case can hit a power plant, and then you have targeted attacks where really wants to get after you. And you need different levels of defense infrastructure against these two things. And that's why we have to talk about where do you think your biggest fear is, and then you really have to take money for that.
Okay, so we'll take that issue with what to invest and how to do the right actions. So Natalia, what can Siemens offer in that part?
I mentioned during the presentation that to protect companies and at the end of the day to protect the society, you need to understand not only the different parts, like the infrastructure, whether this is IT or the OT and the factories, but you also need to understand the context and how are they connected and interconnected together. This is very, very important. So you have, for instance, in the factories to understand whether a robot is communicating with a server because is getting from that service the instruction on how to act and so on and so forth. And this is exactly where Siemens can help because of the domain know-how that we have in the OT. So we understand very good, as you can see, how is the OT, how is the operation technology acting and interacting all together. And therefore we can better help on protecting especially the OT, because the OT or the factories, they are getting more and more digitalized. So again, you can see here an example of what we are doing to digitalize. And when they get digitalized, they also get connected to the network. And therefore, they get more and more risk. This is what we call the attack surface. And this attack surface is growing and growing and growing. In some cases, we still have some time, but we have to hurry and we have to protect that. And the best way to protect that is what Gunther was saying is, first of all, you have to be aware of which assets are connected. If you go to a factory and you ask the production head of, you go there and you ask them, can you tell me which assets do you have and which ones are connected where? He will take a minute or two and then he will look into an Excel spreadsheet, and then in the best case they will give you something. So we have to help them to get the transparency first, and which assets do I have connected or in the factory? And number two is it something wrong happening? So I have to monitor the anomalies, let's say. Worse, you have to do all this without causing an interruption because you cannot stop a factory from producing, right? If you want to do this, you have to know what are you doing and how are you doing, right? And Siemens is expert about digitalization, is expert about automation. It has been a while with the customers doing this. So this is one of the big advantages that we have in Siemens.
Yes, I see it as like, I mean, it's a complex landscape.
It is very complex.
Where even not only new devices and new technologies are stepping in, but we have also the old devices in the field. And think about the life cycle of devices. I mean, if the people in the audience will have a look at their smartphones, just have a look at your smartphone and tell me, who of you, the smartphone is older than 5 years? I believe no one of you has a smartphone which is older than 5 years, which means these phones can be supported and secured by the vendors. But we are facing an industry with devices are
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, I think that's one of this challenge, how to merge the new and the old in a way that's still secure. And this is leading me to Günther again, because I mean that's your daily business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Günther, I mean we see like now the cloud is stepping in, the edge is stepping in. We have cloud edge here on the booth.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's merging something to something completely new. And there are new players stepping in. Even I think the supply chain is no more easy because you have cloud providers, you have service providers, you have embedded controller providers. How do we keep trust in this system? Because I need to trust other players.
Yeah. I think first of all we have to look a bit at the term OT, because you said there are so many players and we all use privately already clouds. We have our photos that we share via some clouds, might be Google, might be Apple, might be whoever. So first of all, OT, why are we hammering so much on OT? First, what we just said, we have different age structures. So also the risk there due to old systems for vulnerabilities is quite high. And we have the issue of availability. That means what we cannot afford, what we can easily sustain in an office environment, in a private environment, you might have downtimes of a few hours or even days if something does not work. In an OT environment, in the factory, you cannot live with that. The production has to be running. It might be in a process environment, in an IT environment. Therefore, it's important that you have clouds and an infrastructure around it like Edge that reflect it, that foresee the measures, the technology to ensure that availability, to ensure that edge compatibility, that makes sure that that's why edge is such an important issue, because edge will assemble a lot of information in the operative environment, will collect them, will pre-process them to a certain level and will then transmit it in the cloud. That infrastructure that you use in an OT environment certainly has to put into perspective those two factors, especially the availability, which you might not have, for example, in the typical office environment in the company. So that's why it's not so easy to merge the two things. Okay, I already have a provider for the office, I take the same stuff in the factory. That does not work. And I think there can Siemens provide a lot of experience, a lot of technology how to deal with that factor. The second point, how do you secure it? We use a general approach that I already described. So you still always defend the perimeter of your operative environment, of your factory. Additionally, with cloud, you defend the transmission channel to the cloud itself, which has to be secured. And of course, in our offerings with MindSphere, we do have security measures there. We have security measures for the transmission between the factory and the cloud, so that you have a complete secure ecosystem.
Okay.
I give you another thing about trust, and I think something that enables trust is to be transparent. To be transparent on the vulnerabilities that you have, that we have. You don't have to close every vulnerability, but you have to be aware of those, and you have to be aware of which of those you want to take care of immediately, right? to be transparent as well about the attacks that you are having. We are communicating every time that we have an attack. We all have attacks. The company that tells me we are safe on attacks, Natalia, I would invest in that company anymore, right? So transparency helps to create trust. So we just have to, and we do that in Siemens, so we publish the vulnerability of our products every single week to the customers so that they know what are they facing and what's happening.
Do you think in general that this is a lesson the industry still has to learn to be more transparent on vulnerabilities?
Absolutely. I mean, I still find a lot of cases in companies that they are hiding that the interruptions they had of production or of communication, that they are due to an attack. They claim this was an operational mistake and so on and so forth. I don't think there's a reason of why to hide those things, right? But still, they are not.
Yes, and I think it's something like even from the personal experience, if we step back from the industry, from personal experiences, everybody of us is in social media and we are handing over our data to big companies and tech providers or startups, and we see many of our data is leaking.
Yeah.
So, and if this is not disclosed, if the companies are not telling towards us, we will not trust them anymore. I think so, and that's the same for the industrial level as well. You need to be rather clear on problems.
Yeah, but this is also an important issue for the companies because, for example, the same behavior that you show privately, you also show when you are at work. That means at work, you look in this, we might look in the same web pages that you look at home, where the vulnerabilities are, where this attack starts, because these attacks do not come as one event, they come step by step. People try to get entry doors to find out. And that's, for example, what we are doing in Siemens, what also the organization of intelligence posing. We try to train people that they have to be is a safe behavior, how to use social media, how to use web pages, how to use, for example, just the plugs you have at every airport to charge your mobile phone, which is a security measure. And the same principles you use there apply also privately. So there is no difference before an employee, how do I work privately and how do I work in the office. You have to follow the same principles. That's highly important.
Yes, and it's a lot about data, and what I've learned here on the SPS, I mean, everybody is talking about connected industry and how important data is, and then we see new technologies stepping in, like artificial intelligence and digital twins, and all these models are built up on data. And I think as a security expert, wow, if these models are building on data, what do we need to secure the data and the integrity of the data? Because I think the next level of attacks will be attacking the integrity of data, because this will affecting all the other models we are building up on the data. What is your idea about it? What do we need?
It has for me two views. A, how do you secure the data in these technologies? And the second point, which I would like to mention later, is these are also highly important technologies to implement security. So on the first point, basically the same principle applies as for a traditional factory. Also, the digital twin that you might implement and all these things typically are implemented in the factory. They might have a link to an IT data center, they might have a link to the cloud, but the same principle apply. You have to secure the perimeter around it. You have to make sure the people who are working there are authorized. You have to make sure the IT connections to these data are safe. You have to make sure that the server, the cloud where these data are stored are safe. In that context, apply the same issues as for a traditional SAP or the other system that you have today. There's not much, because basically you lose the same infrastructure, but you're using different calculation modules, you're using different algorithms, you're using different technological approaches, but the infrastructure you have to save is the same. So I think you have to follow the same approach. It's just even more important to invest there, because if it fails, the consequences would be much more severe than in the traditional approach, but the measures are the same. On the other hand, This artificial intelligence, this digitalization is a hugely efficient and important tool to find out which of all the different incidents you have in security each of every day are important, which of them are dangerous, which you can ignore, so that you can have your forces really focus on those threats who are really important, who are really dangerous, because every day you will get thousands and thousands and thousands of indications that something happened which might be dangerous. You cannot put so many people behind it. You need exactly that technologies to filter out the real threats and to defend as fast as possible. And so far it has two sides. You also have to use it.
Let me tell you something interesting, because you asked me before what Siemens can do for cybersecurity, and then in the context of what Gunther was saying about how to defend the new technology. So something very important that Siemens is doing is research. So we spend 4.6 billion euros in research and development, and part of that money goes to cybersecurity. So important situation, important technologies like post-quantum computing question: is our encrypted data going to be secure after quantum computing is there? And we have to start acting now, because we are encrypting data now. And for instance, your medical records, they are going to still be there in 20, 30 years, right? And they are going to still be used. So we have to make sure we are protecting them, encrypting them in the right way. So post-quantum computing, very, very important. And the other thing that we do is to research how artificial intelligence, machine learning can help us to detect faster the indicators of compromise of the attacks, because the attackers are using that. So to invest in research is very, very important, and to have that capacity of investment is not with every company. And Siemens has DNA of being innovating and doing research. So this is the other thing that we are doing on cybersecurity.
Yes, I mean, I'm rather active in the research topic here in Europe, and I'm always wondering, wherever you are on the cybersecurity research in Europe, someone of Siemens is there, which is a good sign. I think so. So I see you are rather active on that field, even on the leading edge topics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Günther, you want to?
Yeah. I think the big advantage with these leading edge topics and with the digital factory, the digital twins, which we are proposing, this is something which is new for everybody. That means you can do it secure right from the start. You can implement security directly in your concepts from the very beginning. The big threats that our customers we are facing are what we discussed in the beginning of this discussion, where we said all the install base, all the factories that have been built in the last 20, 30, 40 years, which have a lot of holes, vulnerabilities, and we are all fighting how can we assess them and defend them. With all these new technologies, the big advantage is you can do it right from the start. Integrate security as part of your business planning, integrate in security as part of your digitalization planning for these new technologies, and you will have much, much less problems than with the existing installed base.
Yeah. So this is leading me again to Natalia. I was a couple of weeks ago in the Silicon Valley on cybersecurity conference, and everybody was talking about artificial intelligence cybersecurity. Because what we see is currently the attacks are rising. So there are a lot of incidents, a lot of things to be monitored and controlled. But we need people who check this. And the number of people can be not scaled up in the same way like the attacks are rising, because the attacks are automated. So everybody was talking about artificial intelligence. Okay. And then there was a good question on this conference. It was like, well, if we can use artificial intelligence to fight cybersecurity, what's about the bad guys? Normally, they are more creative on using new technologies, and they're quicker and faster even on implementing than the industry. So if the attackers can use artificial intelligence to attack us, and we are using artificial intelligence to protect, we are in an arms race. So what do we need to do to win this race?
So talking about artificial intelligence in the use of decreasing the number of people that you need to detect the indicators of compromise, this is what we do. We use artificial intelligence, we do machine learning We have been able to decrease the number of people to 33%, and it was close to 80%. So now we need only 33% of experts looking into the logs and whatever we collect to detect the indicators of compromise. And back to your question on how do we win this race, and I think it's not a matter of how, it's a matter of we have to, right? And one of the big elements that are out there is in fact cooperation. So cooperation internally, so you know Siemens is huge, it's big, it has a lot of companies. So we cooperate with the other Siemens company, whether this is Healthineers or in future Siemens Energy. We strictly look into not reinventing the wheel. We look into using what is out there. We invest a lot, and until now, our models and protection models are showing good results. That have to be very careful always to say that we are completely safe. I don't say that until now. Our
no, but it's honestly to say you can't be. I mean, this is a complicated world.
Yeah.
There are no easy answers and
exactly.
solutions in a complicated world.
Yes, yeah. And there are still easy things to do, and when you do those, like patching, using the complex passwords and so on and so forth, so the basic, then you reduce already 80% of the risk you have. And the rest of the 20% of the risk, you have to talk with the business, make sure you understand what are the critical assets, protect those, and then deal with the rest risk in some way of form. Some way to deal with the rest risk that you have is getting insured. So there are some insurance already available in the market. And all of this you can do if you have transparency of the topic, if you take the topic with the right priority and give the right importance to the topic from the business perspective as well. So this is doable.
So Günther, when you are talking with your customers in the field out there, how aware are they that they have to challenge this arms race?
I think they are all aware that there is something going on. But it's a hugely complex issue. And if you talk about attacks, you can easily identify, I would say, something between 10 and 15 different disciplines, how you could attack a customer, how you could defend it. And almost no company, especially not the small and medium-sized company, are able to cover all these fields and to assemble enough experts. So I think they all are aware. We see that in the resonance that we have here. We see that in the number of questions we are getting. But most of them are struggling to form all the teams and the competencies to judge them themselves, to take all the measures themselves and to implement them. And that's why I think, as Natalia said, cooperation is highly important. What is getting much, much better that now everybody who has been hit is talking much more openly about it. You can easily Google now those companies who have been hit in the last 2 years and they will share their experience. You can learn from that. And the second point, you have to have partners in the industry that you then trust that can help you tackling these problems, because I think almost no company except maybe the Fortune 500 will be able to install own teams who can cover that all. You need partners, you need trustful suppliers, you need cooperation, otherwise you will not able to be in that race.
Okay.
It's too complex, it's too big, it takes too many resources.
And you know what, one important element that we haven't touched on is the authorities, the government, the entities that issue regulations. We also need to work together. So we do in Charter of Trust what we call advocacy, and we try to influence all these entities so that they issue regulations that not only gives you more reporting on things, but that things that rather protect us and protect the products and our factories. So it's very important that we all, as society, all together, companies, government, and as well the individuals themselves, that we all work together towards having a more secure world.
So it's about collaboration.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Again.
Isn't it? It's again about collaboration, and to collaborate, you need trust, because you only collaborate with people you trust, which leads me to the last question of this panel. And this is the Charter of Trust. I've learned 1.5 years ago, you have initiated the Charter of Trust, and this is a collaboration project where you have united, or you unite different players towards a common understanding of cybersecurity and trust. And just, I'm interested, Natalia, what it is about.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, I am really in love with Charter of Trust. And the reason why I am in love with Charter of Trust is because our CEO, Joe Kesa, was the one promoting Charter of Trust. We were the initiators. And that says a lot about the priority that Siemens gives to cybersecurity. And that was important for us internally, for my team of cybersecurity, but as well for society and for other companies. So he was making already an example on why cybersecurity is important. So that was the first thing that was very good. The next advantage of doing cybersecurity is that this is a global effort. So we not only have European traditional companies, but we have American ones. Now we have Mitsubishi coming, we have NTT coming. And we are all working together and agreeing on what is it that we need to develop in cybersecurity. So we have now the 10 principles. They say very clear: ownership, supply chain security, security by default, transparency, education, and so on and so forth. And we all cooperate, and we all take the best examples out of all of us to move forward. So we talk about technology, but let's talk about education. So IBM is making a program in the UK called Cyber First, and they are going to the schools, and we will be doing the same thing to teach the kids how to be digital responsibles and how to deal with this. So it is a huge effort, a big effort. We do steps moving forward, so we will be presenting this in the Munich Security Conference in February. And this is all about cooperation with big companies like IBM, Cisco, Atos, and others.
Yes, thank you very much. So I think my lessons for this panel is that, of course, the industrial world is getting a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, it is. A little bit.
A little bit more, but it's something we can manage. But we only can manage it if we work united in the supply chain on a trust level. And even if we are open to face this new world, because whatever, I mean, threats are everywhere. Even if you cross the road,
Absolutely.
it's dangerous. So don't be afraid stepping in the digital area. It's something you should do wisely and with the right partners on a trusted level. And I think then many possibilities are open. Thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Günther.
Mirko.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mirko.
Bye.
Thank you.
Siemens. Ingenuity for life.